All right, welcome back. Good afternoon. Good evening. The world is dumb. Um, Thanks for being here. I wanted to come on quickly for a late night zap, as it were. Today was an interesting day in the culture, so to speak. And I think that there's something that I kind of realized last night, and there's a very interesting kind of I suppose you could say world happenings going on right now that I think is really interesting, and it kind of hit me last night what the culmination of all these things are and what they mean. So I wanted to come on and have like a very brief, not like a 2 hour, 3 hour rip about what I think kind of happened, and more importantly, why I think all of this is occurring and how it's all together. So thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. Let's get right into it. Before we get started, I want to, again, thank you for being here. And thank everybody for grabbing merch on bobbysauce.com in the last couple days. The code is Dark Winter. It's 15% off. I'm leaving it up for a limited time so that people can grab Christmas gifts and whatnot. This is the Talk to Me About Freedom shirt. After you get off the show, please go to bobbysauceshow.com and make sure that you leave a rating. I really appreciate that. It helps grow the channel. This broadcast will be available on Get. We're live right now on Getter, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and Getter, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, TikTok, and Instagram. The stream will be available in its totality on Getter, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and Twitch after the show. Okay. The title of this episode, which is episode 18, is How They Buy Silence. And I think that the interesting thing about what we witnessed today with the artist formerly known as Kanye West and Alex Jones and all of these people, the people who are not to be named that said all of the things that you cannot say, is that this event, I believe, was probably one of the most culturally relevant interviews probably in modern history. You have one of the most famous people, one of the most famous creative people in the entire world, with one of the most censored but still listened to people in the entire world, talking at a very critical moment in time. You have the Balenciaga situation all culminating. You have all of these strange and creepy things happening around the world. Meanwhile, you have things like the Pentagon or whatever misplacing all of this money. You've got Sam Bankman fried chicken, brain is fried. Guys on New York Times just like smirking and snarkling and not going to prison after he just committed like essentially the largest fraud scheme and robbery like of any in all time, but he donates to the right people. You got Prezi t-shirt, Zelensky on with the New York Times as well simultaneously. We're just like at this big cultural like crux, and I think that Ye is just kind of like walking into the middle of it and just blowing the whole thing apart, which is very interesting culturally. And you don't have to agree with everything he says or how he says it to understand the cultural significance of what he's doing right now. And obviously people are going to clip it out and draw their conclusions, but I'm not here to talk specifically about him, but I wanted to talk about what I think is a much bigger picture, which is what the Balenciaga type stuff means and how essentially the people that run the world buy silence. And it all kind of hit me yesterday, so I want to kind of get into it. Okay. All of you guys, gals, theys, them, zims, and zers, you understand, if you followed along here, I've talked a number of times about the people that run the world. Essentially, my theory, which I believe has a lot of precedent and validity, is that there's a small group of who knows how many, 100 to 200 something families that run the entire world. The way that they run the entire world is through manipulation of the financial system and essentially having an unlimited quantity of cash. So I don't think that money is the root of all evil. I think that evil is the root of all evil. I think money is just an instrument, like a hammer, like a nail. It's just an instrument. It's like a car. It gets you to work or not. It's this inanimate object. The car doesn't make you do evil things with the car. The car is just the instrument. It's just the tool. The hammer helps you build the shed. It doesn't build the shed. You know what I'm saying? So I don't think that money is the root of all evil. I'm not here to condemn money or wealth or any of that stuff. I'm a free market capitalist. I believe people get money primarily by assisting and helping the most people. Though some people get it through nefarious reasons, I don't think that money is the culprit here. I think evil is the culprit. Now, the reason that we're not hearing more people speaking out, talking about Balenciaga or talking about the goings-on of the world is because the people that run the entire world purchase the silence of culturally significant figures in order to keep them in line and silence them, if not temporarily, but permanently. And I made a video about this last night, and I talked about it on my story earlier today, which is they purchase the subservience and silence of culturally significant figures with influence, in order to keep them from voicing dissent. Because the only opposition to their control is a united people, a united populace that's hip to their operation, how they do it, how they manipulate and control the world. There is no nefarious act that is above these people. They think they're better than you. They think you're scum. They don't want you to exist. They want you to purchase things, to consume, and to do the work that they don't want to do. They want people to cut the grass. They want people to serve the food. They want people to build the bridges and the sewers and all of those other things. They only want enough people around that can do their bidding to keep all of these things operating. Somebody's got to build the yacht. Somebody's got to fuel the yacht. Somebody's got to dig that oil out of the ground. Somebody's got to keep things running, right? Somebody's got to keep creating a new classification of people to exploit. Now, essentially how it works, as far as I can understand, I watched a commercial yesterday of Kevin Hart, and I mentioned it on my story on Instagram earlier. Kevin Hart is the most popular and the most valuable and has the most cultural reach of any comedian in the world. Kevin Hart is the biggest comedian in the world, the highest paid comedian in the world. What Kevin Hart says will ripple through the culture. If he comes out against X, Y, or Z, he is he can create ripples, not only through the shows that he does, selling out arenas over and over again, but speaking online and speaking out in public, getting news hits. He could write a book. There's any number of things. There's a large number of cultural influence that a character like Kevin Hart says. Kevin Hart, I watched a commercial yesterday, and I'm not even isolating Kevin Hart. I'm just talking about people with influence in general. Kevin Hart does a commercial with Capital One yesterday, or Chase Bank and Capital One, some partnership between these two entities. And he holds up his Capital One Freedom Card, convincing his people and anybody that's interested in what he has to say to go and get this credit card. Kevin Hart represents a theoretical threat to the structure, to the people at the top, because he can change the way that people behave. Kevin Hart has nothing to do with credit cards, but Kevin Hart has influence. That's why Chase Bank and Capital One want Kevin Hart to hold up their credit card, because it will convince people to purchase or engage with this financial product, and it will ultimately grow that business. So what a company like Chase or Capital One or insert large corporation here does is they see a person like Kevin Hart and they say, hey, Kevin Hart, we're going to give you an ungodly sum in the form of a sponsorship. That sponsorship's going to be for TV deals, your face on advertisements in Chase Bank branches. You're going to be on television commercials. You're going to be all these things. Kevin Hart looks at it as this is going to grow my business. It's going to grow my exposure. It's going to grow my brand. Chase Bank has a variety of other opportunities. They're probably going to loan me money at a lower rate. There's a variety of other things that pull a Kevin Hart type character in. By buying Kevin Hart's allegiance, it seems all good and fun, but he'll make way more money doing commercials for Chase Bank and Capital One than he'll make doing comedy shows. And he gets it all at once. They serve it up. You go on the commercial, they buy the commercial, they distribute the commercial, they push the commercial around the world. They create the distribution mechanism because they're using an influential person to help sell their products. In Kevin Hart's contract, and I'm speaking just from the outside looking in. This is my theory. I don't know this for fact. This is just what I see. In Kevin Hart's contract, it says, you cannot speak out in a way that will disparage the Chase Bank brand or any other Chase Bank subsidiary that you, if you were to say that Chase Bank is owned by a certain type of person, or the person that owns Chase Bank engages in this type of nefarious behavior, or Chase Bank is allowing bank accounts for people like Jeffrey Poopstain or some nefarious actor or some nefarious entity or some nefarious business. If you say anything that comes at Chase Bank or any Chase Bank subsidiary, we can not only remove the cash that we gave you and probably take it back, but we could probably fine you for financial damages of you coming out and disparaging our brand, considering that we're raising your stock by distributing it around. It's like a handshake deal. It's like a handshake deal that's allowing you to buy Kevin Hart's subservience and silence in perpetuity. So if you have him for a 3-year deal or a 5-year deal or a 10-year deal, you could also have a requirement in there that says after the deal is up, you can't speak disparagingly about this bank for a period of time of X. So they can buy his subservience for a period of time. Now, if Kevin Hart gets this deal and gets all this money, well, he's going to spend some of that money. He's going to invest that money. He's going to tie that money up. He's not just going to keep it liquid. So now the money's tied up. So if he wants to come and speak at the king, speak at his financial ruler, it's not only going to take away the money that he's already have, he might have to sell some other assets, divest from some businesses. He's going to lose the bag that he has already secured. So it's best not to speak against the king. Speak against your master, your ruler, your financial ruler. Now, Kevin Hart is saddled. Chase Bank says, hey, Kevin Hart, thanks for joining here. We also have X, Y, and Z other brand that want to join on. It's going to be Coca-Cola, which owns all of the major snack brands, your Doritos, your Pepsi, your Doritos, your Lipton iced tea, your Campbell's soup, and whatever else. We're going to get you a deal with Nestle, for example. Nestle owns all the water, all the other food brands, all these other subsidiaries. There's a very limited amount of people that own these big collections of brands. So if they say, we're going to get you XYZ, now they've got all the food brands, all the drink brands, all the bank brands, and all the financial products, and now he can't speak against any of these entities. Now you own Kevin Hart's cultural influence, and you've essentially silenced him. You've bribed him with money that you have an infinite access to for him to never speak out against the king ever. Kevin Hart has kids. Kevin Hart has a wife. Kevin Hart wants book deals and arena deals and show opportunities, Netflix specials and TV spots, all of these things. And these banks and all of these other entities are all intertangled and intertwined with each other. So they can say, oh, if Kevin Hart comes at Chase Bank, then we're also gonna make sure he gets pulled from Doritos and pulled from Coca-Cola and pulled from his clothing deal and pulled from his sneaker deal. And we're gonna make sure that it's difficult for him to sell tickets on Ticketmaster because we have investments on Ticketmaster. And we're gonna make sure that the arenas that we own, that we invest in, don't have Kevin Hart at that arena because Kevin Hart came at the king. Now he can't perform in this arena. Now he can't go to this sports team. Now he starts to get shut out of society if he dares come at the king. The king is in the form of these large other investment firms, like your Vanguards, like your BlackRocks, like your major multinational corporations that are all intertwined and intermingled. If you were to rule the world, so to speak, how would you do it? You would do it through financial manipulation by purchasing access to any person that has cultural relevance or any person that has widespread distribution and influence, such as a Kevin Hart. Now, the same way would go with an actor. You would buy an actor, you would say, hey, look at this actor. We're gonna get him in a talent agency. The talent agency is invested into by the same entities that have investments at the banks and all these other places. The talent agency gets you the job at the movie. The guys that the producer of the movie, the financier of the movie, the director of the movie, the other actors in the movie, they're all intertwined into the exact same financial deals where they purchase your silence. All the food is distributed from a similar place. All of the medicines are distributed by a similar group of a small group of entities. So you got food, you got water, you got shelter, you got finance, you got real estate, all intermingled, all these investment locations that all communicate with each other that the big entities have a slice of. So if you come at the king in any one of these respective silos, you can be blackballed from the entire system. They take away the prospect of your future prosperity if you dare to speak to the king, if you dare to fall out of line. If you stay in line like a good little boy or a good little girl, like a slave to your financial master, you have no freedom. They can destroy you. They own the media. They own the book publishing houses. They own the radio. They own the airwaves. They own television. They own movie production studios, including movie theaters. They own all of these distribution points. They own people in Congress and people in law enforcement. They own people they own judges, district attorneys, people that are the heads of unions. They can figure out ways to incriminate you. So they could take a person that has cultural influence like a Kevin Hart, a biggest comedian in the world, and they can purchase his silence by feeding him a consistent flow of financial opportunities and or the threat of coming after those financial opportunities for his kids, for his family members, or for his wife. Right? The same goes for athletes. If you play basketball in the United States of America, there's only one game in town. It's the NBA. End of story. That's the game. The winners of the NBA, where do they go? The White House. The winners in the MLB, where do they go? The White House. The winners in the NHL, where do they go? The White House. Football, the NFL, the White House, right? They're all intertwined, all intercommingled. The White House helps finance the building of stadiums to house these professional sports teams, all intertwined, all intermingled, all paying a lot of money in taxes, creating interest in major cities, helping to get out the vote, and a variety of other things. Again, all intermingled. If you are a free person, if you're a Kyrie Irving, if you're the best basketball player, they say, you got to take this potion. You got to not speak against this potion. You can't repost this link on Amazon that Jeff Bezos can share on his platform and monetize, but you can't say it. We can fine you. We could take your money away. They are beholden to a financial master in the ecosystem of the NBA. And then any other corporation that commingles their advertising dollars with the NBA, again, is the same as the BlackRocks, the Vanguards, the same people that would break apart any opportunities that Kevin Hart would have. Now Kyrie Irving can't be an announcer. Now Kyrie Irving can't drop a book. He can't make a Netflix special. He can't be popular on social. They're artificially suppress whatever content or any stuff he puts out there. He's got kids. He's got family. They threaten all of your natural human elements by threatening the prospect of future financial opportunities. That's how you keep everybody in line. They can fine you, and then they will intentionally emasculate you in front of the public on TV by getting the pundits who are bought and paid for by those exact same entities to say that you're crazy or to say that you're such and such. They could take a Stephen A. Smith or whatever other sports commentator and say, you need to say that this guy's bad. Or they don't even have to say that he's bad, but it's because Stephen A. Smith or Shaquille O'Neal or Charles Barkley or whoever is signing the back of a paycheck from one of these larger entities understands that when the machine comes down on Kyrie, when the machine comes down on Kevin Hart, when the machine comes down on Kanye or whoever you want to say, that they are the collateral damage in the peripheral vision of this explosion. They're close enough to the heat that they're going to get burned too. The easiest thing for them to do is to denounce, to distance, to back up, stay in line, collect your good boy points, and secure the future bag for you, yourself, and your entities and your family going forward. They don't even have to say that they're going to take it from you. You just know. So if you're an athlete, you have a limited window of prosperity. You have a limited time where you can even be prosperous as an athlete, which means you're even more crunched. So they know that they can fine you, suspend you, blackball you, find ways to take you out. Meanwhile, you have a lot of handlers. You got trainers, you got doctors, you've got attorneys, you've got a lot of other people that are on the inside, that are also on the take, that are also part of the mechanism, that can figure out a way to find the inside track on your health, inside track on the medicines you're taking, inside track on the food that you're eating, where you're going, what your mental state is. They have all these tentacles in there by people that want to collect good boy points that don't want to be in the blast radius of the people that are really running the operation. So just distancing yourself from a person that has a tinge of radioactiveness is a great way for you to secure the bag. This explains why the entire world says nothing about Jeffrey Poopstain, about what happens in the highest halls of government, why nobody is coming at Pfizer or any of these large big pharmaceutical companies that are committing all of these horrible acts. That's why nobody comes at Nike. That's why nobody's saying anything about Balenciaga. That's why nobody says nothing about nothing except for the oil companies. That's their target now, the oil companies. Because a lot of the big players divested from oil because they knew what was coming. A lot of the big players in the oil industry found ways to divest, to now invest in green and blah, blah, because they have the inside track to the people that they installed as politicians that can say, hey, we're not going to allow any more leases for oil drilling. You better get into solar panels or whatever other. They have the inside track. They know. And then who's left caught holding the bag? The oil companies are a publicly traded company, right? The CEO of an oil company is an employee. A lot of the people that work, they're just employees, right? So who's the real bag holder when it comes to the oil companies? Well, it's a publicly traded company. So your Vanguards or whoever else, they might own a piece of it. But it doesn't even matter as a percentage of their portfolio because they have the other side of the coin. They own the Coke and the Pepsi. They got the solar panel and they got the oil. So even if you crater the oil industry or whatever, that business is still going to make money, and you can just distance yourself quietly from it while still monetizing on the other side. If someone doesn't buy Coke, they buy Pepsi. Now, the same thing goes for a model or a musician. Now, the thing about models and musicians is that being a great musician does not require experience like an actor typically does. An actor, you just pick a cute kid and then they teach them how to act. They bring them up in the system. So they find people that could potentially have cultural influence and they create them. They take a Justin Bieber, for example, from a very young age and they bring him into the ecosystem. They tempt him with all of these things and then they dangle that in front of him to purchase his cultural to silence his voice forever. They lock him in multi-year record deals. They give him all the money in the world. They exploit them, not only their physical body and all the nefarious things that happen in Hollywood. And they say, oh, you want to be famous? You want to be famous? You want to be rich and famous? Just slob Harvey Weinstein's knob right now. Right? And then when Harvey Weinstein no longer becomes useful, the machine chews him up and spits him out because they don't care about Harvey Weinstein. Harvey Weinstein got a little too toxic, so they discarded him. But he'll be out eventually. Just like Bill Cosby got out, because they're all part of the same game. So that's why they want all these actors and all these musicians from a young age. They bring them into Disney. At 6 years old, they find parents that are easy to exploit. They create them up. They emotionally manipulate them, dangle them with the money, install all of their handlers in place, and squeeze them dry. And then once they've reached a high level of cultural significance, if they come at the king, if they use their influence, they destroy them. Because they own the mechanisms to build them up, just like they own the mechanisms to break them down. This is what happens to your Corey Feldmans of the world. This is what happens to your Aaron Carter or Nick Carter, whatever, Aaron Carter, whatever. This is what happens to your Macaulay Culkins. This is what happens to your Michael Jacksons. This is what happens to your Mac Millers. This is what happens to all of these people. Now, some people are caught in the fray, but I would wager that a lot of them, they build up and then they destroy. If you don't come at the king, if you represent a cultural influence that pushes the juice, that pushes the government is good, that goes to the White House, Olivia Rodrigo, for example, if you do what Billie Eilish does, they own you. Billie Eilish is famous and popular not because her music is famous and popular, because they make her popular because she's an instrument of the mechanism. And as long as she doesn't come at the king, she will continue to grow. Her money will grow. They'll emotionally manipulate her. They'll keep her in check and in line. The same goes for these models. They bring in a young model and they say, oh, do you want to be on a Balenciaga campaign? Do you want to walk in a fashion week? Do you want to do Vogue? Do you want to this? Do you want to that? They dangle the carrot. They bring them in on their hopes and dreams, the shiny Hollywood that they have manufactured through the exact same mechanisms that convince you that Hollywood is so nice when really it smells like piss and it's like largely evil. And it's all this big fabricated like mechanism that the whole world is all bamboozled into. It's like they have worked at this for, I would wager, thousands of years. That's what's so crazy about it. This is like a multi-thousand year game. And there's only been a very limited amount of people that have broken out of this structure, that have set up anything that dares come at it. And the one thing that escaped it, the one thing that's preserved human freedom in the entire world, despite all of this depravity, is the American Constitution, Bill of Rights, and the fact that America exists at all. Without America, we would all be in China. And right now, what they're doing in China is just a test run, just a showcase of what they want to say. They will lock you in your house. They will board you up. They will beat you in the streets. They will silence you. They will arrest you. They will snuff you out. They will destroy you in plain sight. They'll censor your communication. They'll censor your ability to distribute information online. They'll stop your ability to get medicine, get food. They'll trap you, imprison you, other you, deperson you, destroy you, and get the subservience of the other people that don't want to get in the blast radius of the king. If you continue to garner your good boy points, what do they give you if you're a musician? They give you a Grammy. Who picks who gets the Grammys? They have a board of people that choose who gets the Grammys. If you give a Grammy to a person, their music becomes more valuable. Their stock becomes more valuable. Their albums sell more. They get the award to reward them for their subservience, for their silence. They are rewarded with a Grammy, a financial instrument, a moniker to represent their collection and accumulation of good boy points. In pop culture, you get, what do you get? You get an MTV Video Music Award. You get an Oscar. You get an Academy Award. You get a Nobel Peace Prize. You get an award. They celebrate you. They honor you. They let you speak at a college campus. They fulfill all your dreams. They give you a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame that some bumblebee tuna just urinates on and sleeps on 99% of the year, except for the one day where they get a big broom and sweep all the bumbles off so they can shoot the shot, the frame where they can show you standing at your podium in front of your star, and then they take the bumble and throw them into the bush for 20 minutes. If you're in music, they reward you with distribution on these big platforms, on YouTube, on Spotify, with plays. They reward you and financially incentivize you to stay in line, to stay in the good boy points. My friend Tommy Vext gets blackballed from the radio, from all of these other opportunities because he spoke out at the king. They come to destroy you. Online, there's a variety of different ways that people monetize websites by putting advertisements out, ad networks, and so forth. They purchase your silence by saying, if you have content on your website that is anti-Prezi t-shirt, anti-juice, anti-whatever we deem necessary, we remove your financial opportunity to advertise. We take away your money flow. If you're on one of these platforms and you're an upside down they them that identifies as a hippopotamus, and you say, Joey Basement, get the juice. Everybody line up and get the juice. Jine, they're better than us. Over in China, they're better than us. You get rewarded. You get distribution. You never get threatened. You get monetized. You get opportunities. You get lifted in the distribution. The way that these things are manipulated now is the exact same way that reality is manipulated in your real life. You get a spot on Good Morning America. You get a Monday morning hit. You get a bigger arena. Now, when it comes to the financial institutions, a financial institution can let you borrow money at a lower rate. If Kevin Hart is on the take, or Kevin Hart is in such and such a position where he doesn't come at the king, well, he's got a relationship with Chase. We'll let you borrow money at a lower rate. We'll let you get a mortgage at a lower rate. We'll incentivize you with a monetary instrument that allows you to secure the bag. And what are you going to come at the king now? You just bought a $15 million house. What are you going to do? You're going to come at the king? You're going to blow out your whole situation? Of course not. You're not going to ruin your opportunities because you're willing to sell out your fellow man to secure the bag to protect yourself, which is why they don't say anything. When it comes to businesses, they do the exact same thing. They'll debank you, remove your ability to sell certain items. You're always under the financial thumb of some greater entity that's under the financial thumb of a bigger entity. Financial opportunity is the mechanism by which the world remains subservient to the 300 people that run the planet. The threat of future removal of economic opportunity is the silencing factor that keeps the entire world running in a perpetual slave state. There's this quote where David Icke talks about, he's like, the greatest form of control is when people are in a cage, but they can't see the bars and they think that they're free. The threat of economic prosperity in the future is the means by which the people who run the world silence dissent. That's it. This entire time, I've been trying to understand how they do it in totality. And interestingly enough, the simplest answer, the simplest explanation is the truest one. The threat of removing future economic prosperity is the means by which they silence all people of Earth, all people with cultural relevance. And you collect points along the way if you don't come at the king. And they give you all these things. Now, what's the flip of this? Okay? What if you are outside that system? What if you have money and power and a variety of other things? Well, there's two ways that you could do it. If you can't beat them, join them. So you join, or you stay somewhat on the edge, but you don't say anything. Because even though you already have the power, it's not worth blowing up all your stuff. Or maybe you join. The flip side is, and what we are witnessing right now, is Ye. Somebody that has money, that has cultural influence, that has distribution. Ye, in theory, is the freest man on earth right now. And I'm not here to support what he's saying. Just listen to what I'm trying to say. This dude is very intelligent. Whether people want to dismiss him, cut up clips of him, do whatever you want. I'm not here to defend him. But what I'm saying is, do you think that this guy went on that show today and said all that stuff that he knew would go out there because he's dumb? Do you think this guy got to this place by being stupid? What he did was he essentially said, I can say and do anything. I am invisible and untouchable. I got God, that's all I need. The guy lost his family, right? He's being debanked. They're coming at him in all these different varieties of ways. What he got by wearing a mask and covering his face is they didn't get any of those gotcha face expressions. Any person that sees a thumbnail of that broadcast is going to be like, what is that? So they're going to have to go listen to it, maybe a little more of it, to even see that that's even him. The photo doesn't solve it. So by seeing a photo of it and reading a headline, you're like, is that him? I don't know. It says it's him, but I don't know. So then you listen. And you may listen to what he says, but it's cut out of context. So then you might listen to more of it, which means he's manipulating the distribution mechanism by saying shocking things to get the ideas distributed far. He's taking the arrows, but it's like he's trolling everybody. He just basically committed the ultimate troll, whether you like it or not. His message will go 50 times further because of what he said. He said it to get reach. He did Donnie Ballgame 2016, where Donnie would come out and say some stuff that he knew would get them ripping. And then they gave him distribution. And then he won the presidency. I'm not saying he's going to win the presidency. I'm just saying he's blowing up the glue that holds together the mechanism that enslaves the entire world by saying things, just words that he knows will cause him to get distribution and for him to essentially be the martyr. He's like martyring himself. You know, it's like he's like the freest person on earth. It's like, and you don't have to agree with him, but the guy is flipping the mechanism by like throwing the culture back in everybody's face. I saw a statistic today that Kanye was the 6th highest selling artist on the Billboard 200 this year. 4 of his albums made the Billboard 200 and he released no album. Right? It's like he is creating a break in this multi-generational control mechanism that enslaves the entire world by manipulating back the exact same machines that keep everybody else down. And whether you like what he's saying or not, try to acknowledge that this dude is the only person in the entire world living right now that has gone this far to shatter that exact same structure. It's like, this is a very interesting moment in time. And it's this very interesting combination and culmination of a variety of things, where you have this widespread government corruption in the highest halls of power, in the freest nation in the world, America, where the one last bastion of freedom that separates us from other nations is speech. And the last piece, the silencing of dissent, because they haven't been able to silence dissent through laws because of America, but they have been able to silence dissent through the culture by purchasing the subservience of the titans of influence. They buy the musicians, like I just mentioned. They buy the athletes, like I just mentioned. They buy the actors, like I just mentioned. They buy the models. They buy the artists. If you're an artist, they anoint you to value. You get a Christie's auction. You get an art valuator. Some art house anoints you. And then the same painting that you painted 5 weeks ago that was worth nothing is now worth a lot. A la Hunter Biden spitting paint through a straw sells for $50,000 because you get anointed. The art world works on this anointing, and then they create these valuations out of thin air. They manufacture money. They put them in tax shelters by keeping them in a silo. If you've watched Billions on Showtime, you see how they do this. And then art is this financial instrument, a non-taxable sitting entity. If you have $100 million, where's the money sitting? You buy real estate, you got to pay taxes on that. You put it in the bank, it's not necessarily secured there. You invest it in the market, it's not, you could lose. Where do you put it? The only place you could put it is in art. That's the only non-deteriorating, not like non-taxable entity where you could sit it in a silo. You know, you could buy cars, gold, resources, water, you know, iron, whatever. So it's like they control all these resources. They control all these businesses. Now they control all these people. Because interestingly enough, Justin Bieber has more power in this world than Joe Biden does. Cristiano Ronaldo has more power than Joe Biden. The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, has more power than Biden. Zuckerberg has more power than Biden. Think about this. If you just took the homepage of Twitter, let's say, and you just changed the homepage and said, there's slave camps in Jain for 24 hours, what would happen? If you did that with the homepage of IG, Facebook, if you sent out a push notification to 2 billion people, which these people could do, so could Google, so could Apple. They are more powerful than any entity could ever be. The distribution of ideas is the only mechanism that keeps people free, because the mental prison is the last frontier. These companies are more powerful than any statesman, any leader could ever be, which is why they need to own the cultural influencers. They need to own Bieber. They need to own the soccer players. They need to own them. They need to own the actors and the musicians. And in addition to owning the wild cards, they need to manufacture their own so that they can use mass effect. Well, let's get Katy Perry, who we manufactured, and Olivia Rodrigo, who we manufactured. Let's get Kelly Clarkson, who we manufactured. Let's get all these people that we manufacture, that we know will toe the line. And then let's take the wild cards, the people that came in from the outside, your Ye's or whoever else. We got to buy them too. How do you threaten a person like that? Through their family and through their health and through the weakest link in their ecosystem, their kids. Psychology, the psychology of humanness, human life, is understood in the halls of power far beyond anything you could ever learn in any school. They got that stuff way before. They know what you're going to do 50 steps ahead. They know your behavior online, what you say, what you search, where you go, what you spend money on, how much your house is, how much money you have in the bank, how many assets you have, what you own, where you've been, who you're related to, your health, your medical history. Every weakness and vulnerability you have is all intertwined into the structure. Your family members, as significant as you could be, represent a wild card. The way that they bring mob bosses down is they find the weakest guy. They get him drunk, or they get him in a room with a hot chick, and they get him to spill the secrets. They find the hole and they penetrate through the weakest link. That's your Hunter Bidens. Hunter Biden, it's probably unfathomable what Joe Biden, the human person, would be willing to do to protect Hunter, because that's his son. Love him or hate him, people have an innate need to protect their offspring. It's built into your DNA. If Hunter Biden was to do something that would sentence him to a lifetime of imprisonment or worse, you could get Joe Biden to do or say anything forever. And if you were to reward him and anyone in his ecosystem with good boy points, awards, status, access, money, real estate, connections, a good life, power, you would own him. And by dropping a video, a photo, or some evidence, you could take Hunter down. If you found a way to manipulate Hunter, to include him where it would put himself in harm's way, you would have him even more. People are imperfect. And no matter how good you are, you always have a weak point. And if you have as much knowledge, information, resources, and money as they do, you could find, isolate, and target that weakness over the short or long term and just shelve it for manipulation at a later date. If you were to see a person that had a cultural rising star, a distribution of influence, you would identify those people early. Much like you would identify a musician that's getting a lot of radio plays, a comedian that's selling a lot of tickets, a social media person that's getting a lot of views or a lot of follows, a business that's growing very quickly. And you would purchase their subservience before they even realized it, under the guise of sponsorship or a faster track to more distribution or influence. You're always there scouting, because that represents the greatest threat to your consistent domination forever. Somebody that could spill the beans. If all else fails, you can end that person's life. How would you do that? Oh, they committed suicide in a secured prison. Oh, the cameras malfunctioned. Oops. How would you get the cameras to malfunction? Well, you got money, right? You got access to the electrical grid. You could figure out a way to flip the electrical grid, zap that box, get a person that's going to be in there. You could get the DA to put them in a specific prison that you want. You could buy the subservience of those guards. What do you have to do to get those guards to fall asleep? What do you think you got to do to get them to do that? Pay their mortgage. Put their kids through college. Oh, it looks like your grandmother needs life-saving cancer treatment. That would be nice if she got that cancer treatment, would it? Oh, okay. Well, we're going to have a guy that's going to be in here next week, so you let me know, right? You can buy the weakest link out. Then, when it comes time to prosecute those guards, well, you own the DA. You own the mayor. Right? Oh, whoops. Oopsie daisies. Hey, guard, when you get through this, there's $1 million on the other end of the rainbow. You'll be set for life. Just do what we say. How many people would have the balls to turn that down? And you could say, like, it would be you. But if your mom was dying of cancer, if your son needed a life-saving operation, if your cousin needed an organ transplant, if your friend was in debt, a lot of people would have a price. It's like doing business with the mob. Because once you do it, well, maybe they don't pay you. Well, then what are you going to do? Rat them out? Oops, your brakes cut out. Oopsies. Oh, man, a tragic fire. Oh. You don't think these people understand how to make it look like somebody clapped themselves? They know where you are. They have all the money to research you. They can fly a drone over your house. Wait. See. Boop. Goodbye. There's any number of ways, especially if you're an artist of the dark arts. I don't know much about how murderers get away with things, but I know that they don't autopsy every single person. If you get in a horrible car accident, do they autopsy your body? What do they look for? Maybe they do. If you fall off a cliff, do they give you an autopsy? Maybe. Maybe not. There's any number of ways to snipe you out. There's this recent crypto billionaire kid or whatever, 30 years old, crypto millionaire, whatever, just died. He drowned. Sure he did. That's how they show you, just like the mob did. Oh, the pizza shop owner didn't do such and such. Ooh, look at that. His shop burned down. It's so interesting. They don't have to say it. You just know, right? Because we're all human. Everybody poops. We all have those same things. We all are going to go out to dinner. What, are you going to sit in a bunker for the rest of your life? It's no way to live. They can emotionally, mentally, psychologically manipulate you to do what they want. The same thing goes for an entrepreneur. If you're an entrepreneur that starts a big business, well, what do you need? Access to capital, investors, credit lines, distributors, right? They can pull you along the line in the exact same way that they do with the artists and the musicians, through awards. Ernst & Young, Business Leader of the Year. Fortune 1000, fastest growing company. Those awards make you more financially trustworthy. You get bigger contracts, you get bigger deals, you get more employees, you get better leases, you get better financing, you get access, government contracts, etc. Now you're on the take. Now you can't come at the king. You're financially beholden to the structure. They lift you up, they can tear you down, and everybody, for the most part, secures the bag and then realizes later that now they're in. If you're a person that started a beverage brand, for example, and you have the fastest growing beverage brand, you have a vitamin water, you have a Peak iced tea or whatever. What happens with these companies when they get big? Well, in order to get big in beverage, and I'm just using that as an example, well, you need shelf space. How many people are ordering drinks online? Not that many. They're buying them at stores. Well, you have to buy the shelf space. You have to compete against other big businesses like Coca-Cola for the shelf space, for the cooler space. There's only so many grocery stores. If Coca-Cola says you don't let any other tea in here, there's no other tea. They buy you out of the position. You have to take on financing through banks, credit, investors, etc., to get the money to front the product, to pass the financial and economic and government regulations to distribute. You need relationships with trucking and shipping and packing and fulfillment and all these other things, maybe other nations for your products, because it's cost prohibitive here. And then at the end of it all, how does a drink guy cash out? They either do one of two things. Well, one of three things. They run it, but that's the whole thing. They sell it to Coca-Cola. So now you're owned by Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola is your financial daddy. Coca-Cola either removes you and you walk away with $1 billion, and now we know that they know you got money. They're going to gatekeep whatever you do with that money, where you put it, where you invest it, etc. Or let's say they keep you on. Well, now you have a Coca-Cola business. Well, you're going to get a lot richer. You're going to speak at the Forbes Summit. You're going to get awards, right? Coca-Cola, who's it owned by? A number of companies. Warren Buffett, for example. Oh, okay. Who's Warren Buffett with? Warren Buffett's got investments in X, Y, and Z. Well, you can't speak about Coca-Cola. And since you can't speak about Coca-Cola, well, you also can't speak about any of the other companies that Warren Buffett has invested in. Now your T brand, now your influential distribution point, now your cultural relevance is silenced by the prospect of future economic opportunities being removed from you. And as I said, if all else fails, they could find a way to take you out, or they could destroy you in the court of public opinion. Find a weakness, isolate the weakness, whether it's within you or within your family, maybe something that you did in the past, maybe something that you'll do in the future, maybe creating an environment of which that is likely for you to have that happen. Think about this. Let's say you're a recovering alcoholic, for example, okay, and you run this big brand. I know that every day after work, you go over to Billy's Steakhouse and you buy a steak dinner. If I was to follow you or have some of my minions or henchmen pursue you to see that every Friday night you go to Billy's Steakhouse, what do you got to do? You got to figure out who's working behind the bar at Billy's Steakhouse and jimmy your drink. I'm saying, you think these people are above this? Of course not. You're talking about hundreds of billions of dollars on the line. You're talking about global control on the line. You telling me that some waitress somewhere can't get bought out? Hey, I'm going to give you $100,000 to let us put something in this drink. What's she going to do? And if she can't be persuaded by money, you could persuade her by threat of violence, by threat of removal of economic prosperity. Again, all interwoven. You dose the guy's drink. Oh, maybe give him a little alcohol. Oh, he does something crazy. Oh, well, I wouldn't want this to be on TMZ tomorrow. Oh, now, better not say anything. This is the degree of, this is what I'm saying. Like, this is the game. And it's like, think about every movie you ever watched in your life. Think about that. That stuff is, there's a lot of truth to that. There's a little bit of truth in every lie, right? There's a little bit of truth in all that stuff. So it's like, dude, you think these people are above that? If these people are willing to sell somebody a mysterious juice that could cause them to have a heart attack when they're, allegedly, when they're 25 years old, you think these people are above dosing one guy's Coca-Cola to get him to do something crazy, right? Of course not. It's like, dude, the whole world is this manipulated charade. And the one instrument that tethers us all together, even more than food, water, etc., is money. But the one thing that is freeing, the one thing that supersedes money is ideas, knowledge, and the ability to distribute that knowledge. If all of these other outlets fail, well, they could do what they did to Julian Assange. Oh, he committed some sexual crime. Did he? Do you think that that actually happened? Well, you could get him in the court of public opinion, and you could imprison a journalist for doing journalism. Julian Assange is sitting in jail right now. You know? It's like, well, is it any surprise that people don't want to come at the king? Is there any surprise that the food in a hospital is disgusting and poisonous? Is it any surprise that the vast majority of pharmaceutical products, if not all of them, have side effects? Is it any surprise that the food is poison and the water is shit? And that there's all these ailments, psychological problems, drug abuse? It's all part of the same mechanism. It's all part of it. The whole thing, everything. It's like 99% of every single thing you've ever seen in your entire life is a lie or an altered reality to convince you to do, say, and act in a certain type of way so that you become a useless instrument of the mechanism, a consumer and a producer, but not an upper crust elite. you are constantly kept under the financial thumb of the top and given the illusion of freedom and control through elected officials that now they've become so brazen that they don't even try to make it look real. That's your Carrie Lake situation. That's your Joey Baseman. That's your John Feder beef, maybe. That's your Gretchen Whitmer. That's your Kathy Hochul. And what is not done through manipulation is done through emotional manipulation, through the control of idea distribution, like the news, like the books, like the TV. They don't have to fake it if they can convince you that it's the other way. If they can emotionally manipulate you, they don't even have to cheat. They don't even have to fake it. That's where we are now. The demoralization, the pitting of people against each other, the keeping us in this trap of like race and religion and gender and all this stuff. And like, if you could hate 99% of what Kanye's saying, but that's what this dude's talking about. It's like, if no one ever talked to you about race, would you even ever think about it? Would that even be a topic of discussion? It wouldn't. The vast majority of people on this planet don't think about race ever. In my entire life, I cannot think of a single conversation. I cannot think of 10 conversations that I've ever had in my entire life that have involved the race of another person for no reason, especially for some nefarious reason. Because to most people, race is like the color of a person's shirt or hair. It's just a visual marker. If I see a person that wears a certain type of sneaker and that person always wears those sneakers, always kicks me in the beanbag, I'm going to be like, yo, people who wear these sneakers are like beanbag kickers. It's just a social marker to indicate a grouping of what you see. It's not bad. It's just classification, like the left, like men, like women, like old people, like young people, like Gen Z, like Gen X, like millennial, like whatever, like boomer. It's all the same stuff. The golf guy, the basketball guy, the Home Depot guy, all the same thing. The news pundit guy, the sportscaster guy, the news anchor woman. It's all the same. It's just a classification. It's just this trap. So it's like, at the end of it all, for people to think that they actually have control when they've been emotionally manipulated to believe all this stuff that's all out there to get them is the saddest part of it all. Because people like Kanye or Ye, he's just a bad communicator to people that could be convinced. His message is there. He admits he's a bad communicator. I'm not here to defend him. But what we have to understand in the world is that Ye, whether we like him or not, is our human brother. This is a human being that is just as much us as he is anybody else. And it's like, unless you believe that this guy has evil and hate in his heart, which I personally don't believe based on what the guy has said, it's like, if this guy's not evil, what is he trying to do? What's the message that he's trying to give us? What is he trying to show us? What is the message? Do you see what I'm saying? It is a profound cultural moment in human history that we are witnessing unfolding in real time through the beacon human organism known as Ye. Whether you like him or not, it is of grand significance in the whole structure, perhaps of greater significance than I think any of us even understand at this moment in time. It is so incredibly significant that it single-handedly, in my opinion, created a pivot point of world history we witnessed on Jones today. Save this, tell me later. I'm just saying what occurred today to me was of the same cultural significance as Donnie getting elected, as the JFK assassination or whatever else. I'm not comparing them. I'm just saying a cultural inflection point where a grand message is being revealed, if only we can see it. If we could only look past the clips, if we could only look past the means by which our human brother, Kanye, is trying to communicate with us. He is trying to be a beacon of thought evolution. The easiest position in the world would be like, this guy's crazy, this guy's drugged out, this guy's an anti-blank, this guy is this. It's the easiest position in the world. That stuff's bad. Yep. We all can agree with that. But if you don't see the forest for the trees, if you don't see the underlying significance of this moment, you will miss the grand picture of this life far beyond any of this other stuff. It's right in our face. And I'm like, like I watched that Kevin Hart commercial last night and I watched this thing today with him and I'm like, yo, it like hit me like a freight train. It's like, dude, everything you ever heard ever is true. Not the stuff that they told you is true, the opposite. The exact opposite of every single thing you ever heard for your entire life is probably true. History is written by the winners. We don't even know what went down. We won't be there to know. And many people will never know what went down here if not for us and our ability to emblazon the significance culturally and the collection of ideas that are being spouted into reality right now. It's like we are in this very interesting, like, I can't even explain it. Like, it's like a convergence of like all the stuff at once for there to be like this grand awakening. Great things and great evolutions never happen overnight. They're never this instantaneous shift. It is a slow drip until there is adoption, right? So it's like this guy, whatever you want to think about him, it's like he's just playing the game. He might be the only person in the world that could. And in a lot of ways, what he's doing is very brave. It's like, that's the thing. It's like, think about, and like, go down a path here. Your instinct is to say, F this guy. Much like everybody else's instinct was F Donnie. Just in the same way that they ground him into a piece and boxed him in, and then he blew the thing apart. The exact same thing they did to him to convince people that this guy's bad is the exact same paradigm shift that created his ability to influence the world for the better for the most part. You know, it's like that was what we witnessed with Donnie. So it's like, look past the clip of the guy saying things that you don't like. And it's like, there's a big Easter egg there. And to me, this is the thing. It's like, I'm so thankful. I'm so grateful to God, the universe, whatever, my divine creator, that I have been blessed to live at this moment in time, to have all of this collection and compilation of knowledge, the ability to see past what is so seemingly obvious, but not actually what it seems. And then the beautiful blessing to then go and distribute those thoughts to you. It's like, I'm like blown away by it. It's like, isn't that so beautiful? What a beautiful time. What a fantastic and very interesting moment in human history. It's like they shut the entire world down, an unprecedented shift after the guy that shouldn't have ever been in any power makes this radical shift in the halls of power at the most significant nation the world has ever known, right? Flips it on its head. The first drip of, wait a second, could it be different? Could we break a multi-century, a multi-whatever spell? How would it be done? Through these beacons, through these people, the George Washingtons of our time, the MLKs of our time. Hate them or love them, the yays of our time. Interestingly enough, I used to dislike this dude a lot. And I was like, I don't get, it's like, but that's the whole point. You know? So, it's almost like if you have the capacity to be on the other side of the seemingly obvious position, which in 2016 was Donnie is a xenophobic, racist, blah, 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 who grabs girls by the clam, for you to get on the other side of that understanding, to me, was an elite level of thinking where you convinced yourself probably 50 times as much as a person would have had to be convinced to choose the other side of the political decision. So for you to get to that point where you're like, this guy's the guy, required an additional level of thinking that a lot of the people that are in the lower tier of understanding, the trolls as it were, the people that are so emotionally woke that they don't see the grand scheme, they isolate X, Y, and Z issue and say that is the sum totality of this person and what he's trying to do. Being on the other side of that is like unlocking another level of mental capacity, in my opinion. What we're witnessing with the Ye saga is another example of that exact thing. If you could see past the clips, if you could see past the mask, the boots, the weirdness, if you could see past the cultural pressure of everyone around you to not touch it with a 10-foot pole, if you could see past the words that are anti-this or the anti-whomever or the zany delivery or the way that he acts in X, Y, or Z situation, if you could see past the man and the actions and the delivery, if you could see past the box that it gets served to you in, and just realize that the food inside is delicious, you can make more out of it than what is there at the surface. You could get more from it than you see. Sometimes the best food you'll ever have is in the shittiest restaurant, with the worst sign, with the worst table, with the worst tablecloth, with the worst server in the worst corner of town. But the food is fantastic, and that's what makes that restaurant thrive. Kanye is your corner jerk chicken spot. It's your corner sushi spot that nobody knows about. That is a crap delivery for a high tier message. If you could only see through to what our brother is trying to tell us. It's like we're so quick to discard and be like, destroy that. It's like you don't have to defend a guy to try to realize the humanness of their journey and how, if it were you, though you can't fathom how they got there, they are a piece of you, whether you like it or not. And so is every dictatorial ruler. So is Joe Byron. So is Krusty the Clown Harris. So is every evil dictator. So is Jeffrey Dahmer. So is everybody. These are our human siblings. It's like the depths and the spectrum of what people are willing to do, say, and be is very wide. But we are all part of one human family. We don't have the same relationship with Ye that we have with a giraffe, with a light bulb, with a living, let's just say a living thing, a tree. Yet we are all part of this same piece. Human beings share a heartbeat with the planet, with the earth. So it's like we're all part of this like pulsating vibration. And this guy is only there to teach us something, not to spew hate. This guy would not have raised to this position if his whole empire was built on a pile of hate. So if you can see past the sound bites, if you can see past the garbage package that he's delivering a golden message in, you can get the value out of it if you can only see through it. So I would just encourage people to instead be so dismissive and say, this guy is garbage because of X, to try to understand what this human being is trying to show us. Because I learned a very important lesson when I started talking about Australia. I made a bunch of videos about Australia, and I made this one video where I said Australia is no longer a free country. Some people that have been here since the start know this story. And people in Australia, I got reposted by a couple of big influencers in Australia and on TikTok, and they started coming at me, and they were like, "You don't know, mate, like shut your mouth, you stupid yank," because they love it. They love being subservient. They love collecting their good boy points, these people. So they came at me and made all these videos about how I'm a piece of garbage, etc. I got some really mean emails. Not mad about it, just part of the lesson, right? And I realized something. I was like, wait, I'm getting all this backlash, but it's having an impact culturally, right? There's all these hundreds of videos that are out there. There's tens of thousands of people that are looking at my profile that are seeing what I had to say. My original message, which was Australia is no longer free, is getting out there. Even though these people are mad, they're still redistributing my thought. So I made another video with the intent of triggering those exact same people to coerce them to make more videos about me. So I made another video. And I said, you're just mad at me because I'm doing more to stand up for your people than you are. Knowing that as soon as I did that, they would flip and the gas would go poof, and it's exactly what happened. The next day, that video went 50 times as far as the original video. And then people started coming at me and making insult after insult for X, Y, or Z reason, right? And I started feeding back into it. Because I was like, this is advancing my agenda, which is I want more people to hear the original message and stand up for their country. Because I care about people, much like all of you do. And I would wager much like Ye does. And what I realized from this experience is that when people label you the bad guy, eventually you get to an F-it point where you're like, all right, I'll be the bad guy then. And I believe, personally, it was an error in judgment that I later apologized for because it took me off my original objective. My objective was feeding into the mechanism to distribute that message, but I was overlooking other issues stateside. I was overlooking other issues in America. I was overlooking other things that my people were coming to this account for, which was humor and information packaged in an interesting and different way. Not for me to chirp at people on TikTok in Australia. So I lost, you know what I mean? It's like I lost the objective because I was feeding into it. I believe that Ye is right in that, where he's just trying to be the bad guy because everyone says he's the bad guy, because he's trying to get distribution of the original message, the exact same thing that happened to me. But I had a point where I realized that that wasn't the move. And I turned. And I think that the same thing will happen with him. And it will be a learning experience. But like, what I was able to unwind in my own little ecosystem was very high pressure, very fast. And like any human person is not equipped for that just inherently. So it's like, I'm not here to cheer him on. I'm not here to say what he said is something that I would say. I'm not here to celebrate him. What I'm here to say is, as human people watching another human person do something, what can we gain from it in terms of value? What ideas are being questioned as a result of our brother being in the ringer and the sights of what seems to be a very high pressure situation? And while that is also occurring, why is everybody so mad at him but not mad at our politicians that are causing far more human suffering? Why are people not mad at our money being sold out to Prezi t-shirt? Why are people not mad at other supposed world leaders that are freezing people out of their homes this winter? Why are people not mad at that? Why are people not mad at people being forced to get the juice, being forced to get the juice to go to school, at all the kids that suffered? Why are people holding him accountable? Because it's easy. Why are people not more mad at them? You know why? I'll tell you why. Because the mechanism is focusing your attention on Ye. The exact same structure that does all of the other stuff is focusing you there and not on the things that really matter. Just like they've done every other thing forever. What he has done is not as bad nearly as what thousands upon thousands of other people do on a regular basis. That's the trick. That's the psyop. It's emotional manipulation at scale. And he is being trapped in it, much like I was at that moment, because no person is equipped to manage that degree of pressure. They just have to go with their instinct. And as smart as you are, and as influential as you are, no one is prepared for that, because he is just one man, much like I was. Whereas all the people, individual people, men, women, whatever, that are coming after him are not just people. It's also institutions. It's also the mechanisms. It's also the distribution points. You know what I'm saying? It's not just a bunch of people. It's the mechanisms that are piling on. That's the thing. That's the part that we can't bring into the fray. That's the thing that we don't see, is the institutional power down. And the fact that when all the dust settles, what he does will affect his kids, because the mechanism knows that to get him, that you have to get them. So so in a situation that he's in, whether you want to say it was brought on by him or whatever, which sure, that's a fair take, he has realized that the only thing, whatever you want to call it, that will be in his corner no matter what is God. So he's like, I walk with God. You know what I mean? It's like he just realized that, like, the only thing that will never turn its back on me is God. Jesus, religion, and depending on how you view religion, God, Jesus, whatever, what you think it is, it's like, that's a good thing that's the thing he's leaning on, whether you like him or not. You shouldn't want to see him perish under the big foot of the world. You should want him to be on your human team, creating things, music, art that people love and enjoy and will enjoy forever, right? It's like we want this human person to keep being a great person. We want him to find his way through this. We want him to navigate his way through this. We shouldn't want him to be destroyed. Like so many artists before him were. You know? so it's like, okay. Being that that is the case, will we be willing to try to pass that message around? Will we come out in front of it? Will we spread that through our distribution? Or will we stay back? Because it's all just a big representation of the larger thing. How you behave, my friend Andy Frisella says, how you do anything is how you do everything. So it's like, if we won't talk to our friends about it, will we talk to not our friends about it? If we don't touch this, what else won't we touch? You know? Because I started thinking about that earlier and I was like, I don't want to talk about this. You know? I don't want the sights on me. Nobody does. That's the whole point. It's like, that's the whole point. Nobody wants to stand in front of a controversial issue. No one wants to be in the blast radius. Which is why so many things in the world go the way they do. So, I don't know the answer to this thing. I don't know what happens next. But what I would say, other than the message I've led to up until this point, is for us to be more cognizant that not everything is what it seems, that a lot of what they're doing is as I've illustrated here today, and our human brother, Ye, has a message, whether we like how he's delivering it to us or not. And there is something to be learned and gained as a result of his actions, no matter how you slice it. And the freedom that we seek in life and in our objective reality is rooted in how we think about the things that happen to us and to the world around us, and how we process information, what we do with it, and how we distribute it. Because like Ye said, again, I'm not pumping him up. It's like, he's like, the most important things are food and water and shelter or whatever. And he said, but the most important thing is knowledge. Because with knowledge, you can get the food, the water, and the shelter. The most important thing is knowledge, which is true. So again, our human brother, which is his DNA matches all of ours in more ways than it doesn't, is experiencing an enlightenment of sorts that is hard to process for the average person, but is culturally of great significance to the human world. If we could only see the value in it, as opposed to wanting him to be destroyed, either publicly or privately, or in our hearts. We should want him to improve, to be a creator, to be alive, and to have the opportunity to continue to speak, whether we like it or not. Because I do believe that conversations and information and knowledge are how human beings evolve and grow. It's how we do this. It's how we all get better. The purpose of life, in my opinion, is to evolve. The world is evolving. Human bodies are evolving. Methods of thought, technology, energy, all this stuff, the way that we move through, it's all evolving. The universe is expanding. The world is expanding. The population is expanding. It's all about expansion, growth, evolution. This is just, I think, a cultural leap forward because it challenges people's understanding of how to process thought. So, again, find the lesson, separate it from the man, and learn from it. And I think that we'll all be better off for it. But I, for one, am thankful that this occurred, like I said, because I think that it will cause more people to change the way that they think. And I think the same thing can be said about the juice, about the lockdown, about the reset, as it were. All of these things were opportunities for us to learn. It's like, I don't like what happened. It's obviously bad. But it's like, I always think back to this last message, or this one message that my brother said to me. And there he is right there, and probably right behind me, or above me, or inside me, or who knows. But when I was in high school, I got robbed for $700, and it was like all the money I had because I left my stuff in a place in the house that was easy to get robbed. I trusted the wrong people. I did the wrong thing at the wrong time, and I got robbed, and it was all my money at the time. And I called my brother freaking out, and I was like, yo, I just got robbed. I lost $700. And he was like, dude, he was like, you just got the cheapest life lesson you could have ever bought. He was like, you'll never make that mistake again for the rest of your life. And it only cost you $700. Although that seems like a lot of money now, someday in the very near future, you'll make $700 in just a few hours. And eventually, just a few minutes. Yet that life lesson will remain with you forever. And it only cost you $700. So it's like, you know? Very interesting. So, find the lesson from this experience. Find the gold in it. Let's hope that our brother is safe. And that's that. I hope that this was a beneficial stream for all of you. I hope that you got a lot of value out of this. I really did the best that I could to bring it as much as I possibly could and to share with you my sincere thoughts about this situation. A dicey situation that is challenging to talk about and creates backlash just in and of itself. But to me, if I was to ignore it like I wanted to do initially, I would be doing the exact same thing that would be counterproductive to my own evolution and subsequently your evolution. That's the whole point. It's like, if I don't touch it, if I can't do it, that means I'm not taking on the challenge of what that would entail. And if more people were to feel the same way about challenging situations and dicey topics and not just say, that person sucks, destroy them, then we could all learn from it. We could all find the nugget of benefit. So I sincerely hope that you learned something here. And I appreciate your time and attention for listening. And for those of you that made it to the end, whether on audio or here on the live stream now, I want to thank you sincerely for your attention and your precious time, because that's the one thing that is more valuable than all things in your objective spinning blob of life on this whatever mysterious rock is your time. So I appreciate so much that you spent this time with me. And if you made it all the way to the end and you listened again, I really appreciate that you've taken this little mental journey with me. I typically stick around for a long time afterwards to read comments and whatnot, but I want this show to go as far as humanly possible. I want people to hear this whole thing, and I don't want them to be discouraged by the fact that it's 2 hours or hour and 36 minutes. So with that being said, I appreciate everybody that's here, but I don't want to get into any questions or comments. I want to just button it up nice as it is, because I think that it's of great significance, and I hope that it gets shared all around. After the show, please consider going to bobbysawshow.com and leaving a review on one of the podcast platforms. Please consider sharing it on your Facebook, your YouTube, your Instagram, if it brought you any value, your Twitter account. If you have all those accounts, please go share it everywhere. This will be up in a few minutes on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Getter, Rumble, Twitter, everywhere that you can find it. It'll be on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube. It'll be in all of the places. Please consider resharing it if you liked it. Thank you guys so much for your attention. I want to thank the people that bought the badges on Instagram. I really appreciate that. Thank you, Stevie13, Fast Eddie 500, Chichi 8, SPRDLV, and the Tickle Queen for the badges on Instagram. Thank you guys so much for your precious time and attention. I will stop the recording here. I hope this goes far and wide. Thank you guys so much for your time. All right, guys. Pleasure. That was a lot of fun. I hope you guys get some value out of that. Facebook, YouTube, Twitch,